And I'll be the first one to tell you, I am not great at everything. Getting $1 million in the bank? Definitely not even close. Six pack? Has never happened in my life. Maybe next year. Seriously though, keto diet might be happening. But I'll tell you, there is one thing that I excel at. One thing that, whether it is for myself or for clients or even for friends, that I have a magical ability with, and that is making a big life change. Whether it's moving across the world, quitting a job, making any kind of drastic change, starting your own business, this is an area I excel at. And so if there is one video of mine that you pay a lot of attention to this year, it should definitely be this one. Now, before I get into it, if you're new to the channel, my name is, of course, Dan. This is Dreams Around the World, and my mission here is to help you become the best version of yourself, all while creating the most awesome life possible for you and those you love, which is actually also the theme of the 3 videos I'm releasing this week. And one thing that you may have to do if you want to become your best self and if you want to create an awesome life is make a big change. If you don't have the life you want, if maybe you're not living like the kind of person you want to be living, you're not your best self, there may be things you need to change, and change is not necessarily easy. Change can involve fear. Change can involve uncomfortable situations. It can involve hurting people in the short term and maybe even in the long term. It can involve walking into the unknown. But change is one of the absolute keys to creating a great life. And ultimately, making those changes will not only benefit you, but it will benefit everyone around you and those you care about. Maybe in the short run, some people won't be happy with it, might try to hold you back, might be upset. But when you do what you're meant to be doing and when you become your best self, everyone around you benefits. Nobody likes the grumpy old grandpa who's still pissed off at the world because he never became a painter. But let's get into the first part of making a big change, which is you need to admit what you really want. In the last video, I talked about getting clear about your vision for yourself, who you want to be, who is your best self for you specifically. And when it comes to making a change, you need to be clear on what you actually want, what that change is, and then you need to admit it to yourself. And you need to admit it to yourself in a way where you can actually fail. Far too often, people get stuck in this gray area where they sort of hint that they want something. I see this with friends all the time where they'll be sort of like, hey Dan, so tell me about this entrepreneurship, I'm kind of interested in it, this is, having a business, it could be interesting. And I totally get it, like that is the first step of being open to making a change. But ultimately, to make a big change, you need to get to the point where you're clear about what you want, you admit that to yourself, and there is a risk of failing. If you ever have a goal or a change you want to make where there's no way to fail, like there's no way to admit that you didn't do it. It's sort of this weird gray area, like, I'd like to maybe do something different in the next few years. Then you're probably never actually going to do it. Now, why do people do this? It's pretty obvious, right? If you don't admit what you really want, then you can't fail at getting what you really want, and then you can't be unhappy. So we have this weird belief that if we admit we want something and then we fail to get it, we're going to be really unhappy. So it's better not to admit what we really want, and therefore we can kind of pretend we're happy where we are and not admit we'd really rather be somewhere else. The truth is that is, well, complete bullshit. As anyone who's went after what they really want and failed can tell you, and that includes me, as someone who's failed really big going after what I wanted, is you don't regret it. You learn a ton about yourself. You become a better person, and it is always better to have went for what you really wanted, to have admitted, hey, this is who I am, this is what I want, and to have went for it, and then been slapped in the face by life or by reality or by whatever else, and then learned, and then went for it again. It's a lot better to do that than to hide on the sidelines and pretend you want something, kind of, but not, but blah, blah, blah. I am telling you as someone, and I've talked about this in a few other videos, at some point I might do another video on it, or there's some chapters in a book I will eventually release where I've talked about this. I went through pretty close to hell at one point with a business failure, and I don't regret any of it. It made me a better person. My own mom said to me afterwards, yeah, I'm glad your business failed. You were becoming a smug little asshole before, so you're a much better, well-rounded person now. It's not a bad thing to fail going after what you want. It will make you a better person. So now hopefully I've taken away a little bit of the pain, the perceived pain I should say, around going after something and maybe failing. But what about the pain related to the status quo? We tend to be tremendously afraid of the unknown, like that's something new, so it must be really dangerous and bad. But we don't spend enough time looking at, like, what if we keep going along the present track? Like, hey, if you have a job that you really don't like, and every day you get a little more miserable and a little more stressed and you build up all this anger inside, what's that life gonna look like in 10 years? Yeah, you might go try to work for yourself and have a failure, or you might try to move somewhere or start a great relationship, and that might fail and be upsetting. But what's life gonna look like if you don't try those things and you build up animosity or you build up regret or whatever else? Often the status quo is much more risky and much more dangerous than any kind of change you can attempt, than any kind of risk you could do. It's just, it feels more comfortable because it's normal and it's there. I think that's probably why so many people stay in marriages that should have ended 10, 20 years ago, because it's comfortable. Because even though they're not really happy, that it's at least something they know, and the unknown is so much more terrifying. So let's say at this point you see the light and you realize that a big change may not be so scary. What do you do next? You need to find someone to model, or ideally multiple people to model. Can you look at someone else who's made a change and maybe is where you want to be and get feedback and say, hey, look at how this person did it. Am I on the right track? Now, sometimes this could be personal feedback where you can actually ask that person. That, of course, is great. If you can get that kind of positive reinforcement that you are on the right track and you're doing the right things. But you can also do this just by looking at other people or reading autobiographies or learning about how people did what they did, and then compare that to what you want to do and use that as a good way to know if you're on track and moving forward. Because if you're moving into the unknown and no one around you or no one you follow has done the thing you want to do, it can be a little scary, right? That unknown becomes even scarier, where it becomes less unknown and more friendly when you're like, hey, that person over there, they actually did the thing that I want to do and they seem to be okay. And they said I'm doing the right thing or I'm on track. That can make things a lot easier and a lot less stressful. So now you've admitted what you want, you have a model or two to look at for reassurance that you're on the right track. What's the next thing you need to do? To get leverage. Ultimately, any action we take is motivated by what? Pain or pleasure, right? Our associations with things. So if you're looking to the future and you associate it with struggle and failure and all these bad things, if you make a change, are you going to make that change? Probably not, right? You're going to be pretty worried about making that change if you assume that it's going to lead to bad things. Similarly, if you look at your status quo, which, come on, being honest, being realistic, if you're not happy with it, it's probably not going to lead you to any good places. But in order to feel good, you tell yourself, you know what, this job might get better with time. This relationship, it might get better. I mean, the last 10 years have sucked, but maybe it will get better. This city, I completely hate it and I don't like the people here, but I'm sure it will get better. If you tell yourself that, then what you're doing is you're reducing the pain you associate with your current situation, while making artificial pain associated with the future you really want. It's no surprise you don't take any action. Of course you wouldn't take action. You're a rational person. It would be ridiculous to take action based on that math that you've laid out for yourself. So instead, what you want to do is first associate pain with your current situation. Really think it through. Hey, if I spend the next 20 years at this job, what's my life going to look like? How am I going to feel? Like when I become bitter and unhappy and maybe even stay broke because of this job I have, are people going to want to be my friends? Are people going to want to stay around me? Is my family going to want to stay around me? Think this through, play that out, and associate that pain. Really be honest with yourself and build up that pain around what the status quo could look like. Maybe you want to make a change with your health. Think about what that will look like if you don't make that change. Whether it's dying early, being incapacitated, feeling like crap, not being able to spend time with your kids or your grandkids because you can't get off the sofa. Build that pain in. I know it's not comfortable, but think about that pain. It's a powerful tool. And then at the same time, look forward to what it is you want through this change and start to build a really positive vision. Yeah, maybe there'll be some struggles, maybe there'll be some tough times, but what about the good times? And imagine that. Think of the perfect outcome of it and build that association. Think of all the great benefits that could come to you after you make this change and really get clear on that. So now you have this thing you want with a lot of positive associations. That's really exciting to think about. Heck, I'm getting excited thinking about your vision and I don't even know what your vision is and I'm excited for it. So now you have this excitement for this thing you want to do. You realize that the status quo is not going to work out very well. So you've got pain associated with not changing. There's one last thing you need to do. And on my website, I have a list of rules, and one of them is called 20 seconds of courage. But if you really don't want 20 seconds of courage, you can replace it with 2 glasses of wine. Whether it's courage or wine, get in a state where you can make a big decision that will lock you in and make that change and move you forward. It could be booking a one-way plane ticket. It could be sending that resignation letter to a boss of yours. I had someone attend my event in Prague last month and they told me that actually they read the 20 seconds of courage rule on my website and they used it. They quit their job. They gave something like 6 months notice, so it wasn't even scary. They had 6 months of income still coming, but they used that courage to make a big shift. And he said, and this is something I felt as well every time I've done this, the minute he had that conversation and left his job, even though he had 6 more months to work at it, he felt totally free. He felt completely different because by making that one decision, he had changed his entire future. So come up with that courage or drink that wine, whatever you need to do, and make that big decision to solidify things. Because if you do all the other steps, you get clear on what you want, you have the right pain and pleasure balance, and you're ready to do it, but you stay in that state, well, eventually you're going to lose that enthusiasm. Eventually someone's going to associate some more pain with that future you want, or something else will get all weird. You need to take an action that will commit you to moving forward. That is essential to this whole thing working. So there we have it. Get clarity on what you want. Have someone or someones that you can model and use for positive reinforcement you're on the right track. Get leverage with yourself. Associate pain with your status quo and pleasure with the change you want to make and the outcome it's going to create. And then gain that 20 seconds of courage. It just takes 20 seconds of courage or 2 glasses of wine to take a big action that will commit you and move you forward. This approach has worked for me many times in the past, and I promise you if you follow it, it will work for you as well. Now tomorrow, to complete this series, I'm going to be sharing a video about the keys to creating an extraordinary life. What are the components of an extraordinary life? What does it look like? And what are the parts of your life you might want to be looking at in terms of making change and making something for yourself that really is extraordinary? And last, before I go, I should mention that this week and this week only, admission to my Dreamers Around the World community is open. This is something I'm really excited about, connecting inspiring and ambitious idealists around the world into a tight-knit community that I share a lot of original training with and insights and behind-the-scenes videos and all sorts of great stuff to help you create an extraordinary life. I'll link to that in a card and in the description, and you can check that out. As I said, it's open this week, so definitely do have a look. And if you did notice the weird lighting transition in the middle of this video, the battery died on my camera halfway through filming, and so I had to charge it up and continue filming. So thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with that. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, do hit the subscribe button and the bell. I'm releasing that next video tomorrow, so see you there. Ciao.